Reproduction in plants. Let's know about the structure of a plant. Types of reproduction in plants. Asexual reproduction in plants. Sexual reproduction in plants. Seed structure. Germination of seeds. Seed dispersal. The structure of a plant. We see a variety of plants around us. Though these plants vary in shape and size, they show some basic common features. A typical plant may be broadly divided into two main parts: the part below the ground, root system, and the part above the ground, shoot system, comprising of stem, leaf, flower, and fruit. Types of reproduction in plants. Reproduction is the process by which living organisms such as plants and animals produce young ones of their own kind. Flower is the reproductive part of a plant. It may contain the male reproductive part, stamen, or the female reproductive part, carpel or pistil or boss. Although most flowering plants reproduce through seeds, reproduction in plants may be of two types: asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction in plants. It is the type of reproduction which does not involve the reproductive parts of the plant. Vegetative propagation. It is the type of asexual reproduction in which a new plant is produced from a vegetative part of the parent plant, such as root, stem, or leaf. Roots. In plants such as carrot, radish, turnip, and sweet potato, the roots may become swollen with food. Buds present at the base of the old stem above the root gives rise to a new plant. Stems. Underground stems of certain plants such as onion bulb, ginger rhizome, and potato tuber give rise to new plants. A potato has special structures called eyes. These give rise to buds that may grow into a new plant. Onion bulbs store excess food and may give rise to a new plant. The rhizome of ginger has scale leaves, where buds arise which may give rise to new plants. Also, plants such as rose, jasmine, and sugarcane may give rise to new plants through stem cuttings. Rose plant stem cutting. Jasmine plant stem cutting. Sugarcane plant stem cutting. Leaves. In plants such as bryophyllum, new plants are produced from leaves which have buds along their margins. These buds may give rise to new plants when they detach from the parent leaf. Spore and cone formation. Apart from the above-mentioned methods, plants like mushrooms, molds, ferns, and mosses reproduce by spore formation. Spores are special reproductive structures. Trees like pines have reproductive structures called cones. Sexual reproduction in plants. It is the type of reproduction which involves the fusion of male and female gametes, reproductive cell. The process of sexual reproduction in plants starts with the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same or different flower. The process of pollination has been discussed in the previous chapter. Fertilization. Once a pollen grain falls from the anther to the stigma of a similar plant, it might start to germinate due to the presence of a sticky substance present in the stigma. The pollen grain on the stigma then grows into a long pollen tube, which carries the male reproductive cell, or gamete, through the long style into the ovary. Inside the ovary lies the ovaries or female gamete. The male gamete now combines with the female gamete to produce a zygote, which later gives rise to a baby plant through seedling. Fertilization is the process in sexual reproduction by which the male and the female gametes fuse together to produce a zygote. Fruit and seed formation. After fertilization, all parts of the flower except the ovary dry and fall off. The ovary changes into the fruit tissue and the ovaries changes into seeds. The seeds give rise to baby plants. Seed structure. Seed is a small embryonic plant. The outer covering of the seed is called the seed coat that protects the tiny plant from insects, disease, and damage. The small pod outside the seed, through which air and water enters, is the micropyle. The part that will grow into root is the radicle, which grows first, and the part that will grow into shoot is the plumule. Seeds usually have 1 or 2 seed leaves or cotyledons, which stores food for the growing embryo. A seed having 1 cotyledon is called monocote, and one having 2 cotyledons is called dicote. Germination of seeds. The growth of a seed into a young plant or a seedling is called germination. For a seed to germinate or grow into a baby plant, it needs the following conditions. Water helps the seed to swell up so that the embryo can start growing. Warmth speeds up and improves the process of germination. Air oxygen releases energy for the embryo to germinate. When the conditions are right, the seed starts to take in water, swells, and the seed coat splits apart. Air gets in, burns the packed food inside, and releases energy for the baby plant to grow. A tiny root grows downwards, whereas a shoot begins to grow upwards. Tiny leaves sprout at the end of the shoot that start making food. At this stage, it is called the seedling. Finally, the seed shrinks and disappears. More and more leaves grow, and the stem becomes thicker and stronger. The plant then produces flowers and seeds, and the process continues. Seed dispersal. The movement or transport of seeds away from the parent plant is called seed dispersal. Need for seed dispersal. Dispersal of seeds is very important for the proper growth and development of both the parent plant and the new saplings. If the seeds falls just onto the ground below the parent plant, they might not get enough sun, water, nutrients from the soil. This would result in competition among them for these resources. Ultimately, they would die. Dispersal also helps plants to grow in new geographical areas. Therefore, plants have developed various ways to disperse their seeds. Let us study a few ways of seed dispersal. Dispersal by wind. Seeds from plants like dandelions and cottonwool trees are light and have feathery bristles and can be carried long distances by the wind. Some plants, like kauri and maple trees, have winged seeds. They don't float away, but flutter to the ground. Wind-dispersed seeds have to be produced in large numbers so that at least some may grow. Dispersal by water. Seeds of plants that grow near or on water bodies are dispersed by water. For example, lotus and coconut seeds are dispersed by water. In case of coconuts, their waterproof and fibrous wooden casings allow them to be transported to extremely long distances in salt water. Dispersal by animals. Animals and human beings throw away seeds after eating the fruits at different places, thus helping in seed dispersal. Animals and birds get attracted by the bright color and nutrient-rich flesh of fruits. They then disperse the seeds by defecation or by spitting them out. Some seeds develop hooks and spines that get tangled in animals' hair or fur and are carried to new locations. Dispersal by explosion. In some plants such as pea pod and lady's finger, seeds are dispersed through explosion mechanism. The seed pods slowly dry out in the sun, creating pressure inside the pod. The pod bursts open when the pressure inside is great enough, thus projecting the seeds away from the plant. In a nutshell, a typical plant may be broadly divided into root and shoot systems. Reproduction in plants may be either asexual or sexual. In asexual reproduction, also known as vegetative propagation, a new plant arises from parts such as roots, stem, or leaves. In sexual reproduction, the male and the female reproductive cells, gametes, fuse to form a zygote which later give rise to a baby plant through seed. A seed comprises of structures such as seed coat, micropyle, plumule, radicle, and cotyledons. A seed requires water, warmth, and air oxygen to germinate and give rise to a seedling. Dispersal of seeds is very important for the proper growth and development of the parent plants and the saplings. The various agents of seed dispersal are air, water, animals, and explosion. Keywords: vegetative propagation, reproduction from plant parts such as root, stem, leaves, spores, and cones. Zygote, it is the fertilized egg that gives rise to a baby plant. Defecation, the act of passing the contents of bowels out of the body. Seedling, a baby plant.